June 12, 2018, that's a day to be remembered forever and ever and ever. Why? Because that's when leaders of North Korea and the United States shook hands for the very first time. It took place on Sentosa Island. Now, Sentosa directly translates in English to peace. This ushered in a new era. Both sides signing a promising joint declaration, calling for formal diplomacy, returning the remains of fallen soldiers from the forgotten Korean War, and most importantly, the complete, irreversible, and verifiable denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. But now the real work begins. North Korea has promised in the past to get rid of its nuclear weapons, but not delivered. Now the road is long. That's why sanctions will stay in place. American troops will remain stationed in South Korea. Will this time be different? Time will tell. But Americans must remain steadfast. Peace through strength. Call Congress today and tell them to support the ongoing diplomatic efforts to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. 202-224-3121. 202-224-3121. For more information, go to AmericaFirstPolicies.org. That's AmericaFirstPolicies.org. This message paid for and authorized by America First Policies Incorporated. Join me now, Curtis Ellis. Curtis, Senior Policy Advisor for AmericaFirstPolicies.org, was in the Trump administration in the Department of Labor. He was on the transition team, and along with me, one of the first people in America to back his candidacy when we were with the American Jobs Alliance. I still am. Curtis is the Chairman Emeritus. That means forever and ever in perpetuity, kind of like President Xi of China, right? Not that they're similar. Curtis, great to have you with us.
It's great.
It's great to have you. It's great. It's great. Let's get to this horrific optic situation with the children being separated at the borders. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay. So look, this whole thing is a mess. It's a total mess. You have some court rulings that say you can't detain children with their parents for more than 20 days. You have the hysterical left, which is saying you can't detain parents without their children, right? As you pointed out the last time we talked, if you're an American and you get arrested shoplifting with your 3-year-old, they're going to take the 3-year-old away from you, right? Yes. While they process you. And if they're holding you over the weekend because the judge ain't there to set bail, you ain't going to see your 3-year-old for the weekend. And but illegal immigrants are supposed to get special treatment because they are godlike creatures who are all budding nuclear physicists and rocket scientists and everything else. And, you know, we can scar our own children for life. American citizens can be scarred for life if they, you know, happen to live in inner cities, the black community or whatever. It's okay to take those children away from parents. But illegal immigrants, no, we cannot touch them. We cannot do anything that would offend their delicate sensibilities. Their sensibilities are very delicate, having ridden 1,000 miles through hostile territory in Mexico where they face rape and everything else. But I digress. So the deep state, the hysterical left working through the courts, the unelected judges, and for the most part, have created this labyrinth of laws. It's really like Gulliver being tied down by the Lilliputian midgets. There's this whole conflicting body of laws and judge court rulings, which aren't laws. They're merely judicial rulings, but they have the force of law, that the administration has to comply with, that prevents it from actually enforcing the real law passed by Congress, which says if you're not a citizen and you don't come through a legal port of entry, you can't come in. So President Trump has rightly said the common sense solution is don't let these people in the country.
Right.
Don't let them in. The minute they set foot on American soil, that triggers the whole legal process of claiming asylum, and then it goes through the courts, and there's a backlog of 700,000 cases. I was talking to somebody who's not a Trump supporter. This person is really kind of a California liberal, And her comment was, before Trump made his pronouncement, she said the same thing. So why don't we just send these people back to where they came from? Don't let them in the country. Just turn them around and say, go home. And it just makes perfect sense. You see, something everybody has to understand, which I'm not sure has been made clear because our media doesn't bother to tell us facts. They're too busy telling us it's the end of the world. The 1951 United Nations Convention on Refugees is really the benchmark for all laws in this area. After World War II, and you had the whole mess, the United Nations actually was a well-regarded institution at the time, at least in most circles, and because it hadn't done anything yet, so we didn't. Nobody saw what a failure it was. But anyway, so the United Nations and every country on earth signed the Convention on Refugees, which is going to be international law. And then once we signed it, this is a real binding treaty. Everybody adopted what was in it. And it defines a refugee. It says a refugee is a person who faces persecution, threat of persecution, based on their national identity, their ethnic, their racial, their race, their ethnicity, their religion, or their political opinion in their home country. If they face persecution for those reasons in their home country, they can go to another country and ask for asylum. Mm-hmm. It doesn't say a refugee is somebody who wants a better life in your country, somebody who faces gang violence in their home country. That doesn't qualify you to be a refugee. It doesn't say, my husband is going to beat me and I'm going to come to your country because your country is the world's largest safe house. No, it doesn't say that, right? And so all of these people who are coming here because they fear gang violence in El Salvador, which half of them, they've been told to say that, more than half of them, I'm sure, have been told to say that, and so that's why they say it. But that is not under international law and under the terms agreed to by the entire civilized world. That's not good enough to be granted refugee status, to be claiming asylum. But actually, if you look at it, if you are persecuted because of your race, your religion, or your political identity, political opinion, there is one refugee that has been in the news lately, and that is Sarah Sanders. She was persecuted because of her political opinion. She's a refugee from the Red Hen, from Lexington, Virginia. So there you go.
She's a refugee from the Red Hen. No question about it. So why don't we just, we had a guest on a few minutes ago, and by the way, 22 past the hour, you're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth Across America. I'm with Curtis Ellis. He's a senior policy advisor for America First Policies. That is the #1 political action committee for the president supporting his America First agenda. Curtis, I had Dr. Shore on a few minutes ago, and he said, look, to solve this crisis, all you need to do is take the military and the Marines, put them at the border, and stop anybody from coming in, period. That's it. Just stop it. Then there's no separation of children. There's no judges. There's no beds. There's no military installs that have to be turned into housing for children. It's all gone. You just stop them from coming in. Why doesn't the president just do that?
Well, he said that. He's said that that's what we should do. Just turn them away at the border, stop them at the border, don't let them come in, and send them back home. Look, if people say, oh, well, what about the people who really need asylum? What about the real refugees? Yes, that's a good question. And that's a good question you should ask the human traffickers and the scammers and the cheaters. Mm-hmm. If somebody who really needs asylum can't get in, it's because the system is being jammed up by these fake scammers, by these fake refugees.
Right.
And so that's even more reason to turn them away, so that at the legal ports of entry, somebody can legitimately present their credentials and say, I am a Christian and I live in a country where they hate Christians. Please let me in. There were a whole bunch of those in Syria, right? We weren't admitting those as refugees. Instead, we were bringing in, all the Muslim Syrians who were like 98% of the refugees from Syria that were admitted to the U.S. were Muslim, and I guess they were being granted asylum because there was war in their country. Again, that is not a UN recognized basis for being a refugee. If you were a Christian in ISIS-held territory, you were going to get your head chopped off. Mm-hmm. That's a legitimate reason to be granted refugee status under international and American law.
All right, we're with Curtis Ellis, America First Policy Senior Advisor. You had a column that I want to talk about. I want to change gears here a minute, called U.S. Must Do Unto China as China Does Unto U.S. And you started by saying China is moving forward with its plan to build a vertical monopoly covering every stage of the Asia to U.S. export business. You want to expand on that for our audience, Curtis?
Sure. The Chinese government owns a shipping company, Costco Shipping. This company is out to buy a competitor. That'll give it over almost 15% of the entire. It'll give it control of 15% of all U.S. imports of everything shipped into the U.S. It'll be controlled by the Chinese government. In addition, it will give them control over the port operations at the port of Long Beach, California, where 50% of the traffic comes from China. So they are ready to close this deal this month. Obviously, there are some questions about should China be running our largest port on the West Coast, actually second largest port, Port of Los Angeles, close number 2, Long Beach. Should China be allowed to run that? The Chinese Communist Party, because it's a government-controlled entity that would be running it. So the Chinese have been nice enough to say, well, you know what, we will peel off that part of the deal and we'll put it in trust. We will have a third-party trust under U.S. management run the port for a year while we try to find a buyer. Mm-hmm. Well, that loophole is big enough you could put a container ship in there. How about we do what you would do if an American company, hey, China, we're going to do what you would do if an American company tried to buy a Chinese port. We're going to say, no, sell it to an American company. Sell it to an American company right now before the deal goes through. Mm-hmm. Because we've seen from China time and again, if you don't make them do it now, they will just dither around and create, subterfuges, delays, and go on and on and on and never get it done. So if they really want to buy this shipping company so bad that they're willing to give up the port, sell the port now to a Chinese company. I'll give them $1.98 for it. Get it off their hands. They can go ahead with their big deal on the ships. The Chinese have been using every means available to get crucial infrastructure, technology, and know-how in the United States. If they can't steal it, like they did with Micron Technology semiconductor chip plans, the trade secrets for computer chips, they stole those. Then they go in and they buy into American companies to get what they want. If they can't steal it, they'll buy it. They go to bankruptcy court and pick up bankrupt companies that have technology that they want. They do that. And here's the latest. They've been funding research at U.S. universities. American universities funded with taxpayer dollars are getting grants, cash from Chinese Red Army, Chinese People Liberation Army controlled companies are giving them funding opportunities, which gives the Chinese Communist Party first look at the latest research coming out of American universities. And what has Washington been doing while all this has been going on?
What?
Sleeping. Rex Tillerson, when he was Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson renewed our cultural and research exchanges and partnerships with Red China. So, time to wake up, gang. Time to wake up. President Trump finally has sounded the alarm, and people are starting to wake up. In fact, there was a story I read yesterday that the Chinese now, the Chinese intellectuals in China are starting to run very carefully worded articles saying President Xi Jinping screwed up. He confronted America too soon. Their eminent leader from a generation ago, Deng Xiaoping, said China must hide its strength. Do not show its strength, hide its strength, just show the world a friendly panda bear. Don't show missiles and building islands in the South Pacific and talking about taking over the globalization structure of the world. Don't do that. Hide your strength. Xi Jinping went in the other direction. He got a little too hot under the collar and proud and nationalistic, and now America hates China. Finally, we've woken up.
All right. That is going to be the final word here in the John Fredericks Radio Network for Curtis Ellis. Thank you, Curtis. We appreciate that. I want to encourage everybody to read Curtis's article, U.S. must do unto China as China does unto U.S. You can read that on WND.com. Curtis, thanks for being with us.